Yeah, hit it. A little hard.
Give it a slap.
Well, it'll hurt the nose. Here we go.
Carmen, how did you inspire Salvador Dali?
You'd have to ask him.
How did you feel when you were painted by Salvador Dali?
Well, I made $7.50 an hour to bring home to my mother. That's all it meant to me. I didn't know who he was, except this eccentric man who spoke perfect English, but he pretended not to.
It was the money.
Of course it was the money. My mother and I, lived together, and that was, our rent was $30 a month.
And you were the breadwinner.
Yes.
Right.
To both my parents all my life, which was my pleasure.
Good for you, yeah. And you feel good about that.
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Albert, how was your day today shooting Carmen?
She was very difficult. No, she was fabulous.
I'm renowned for that.
No. She was fabulous. She's, the interesting thing with Carmen, which is models could learn, young models today could learn from Carmen, is that she's always concentrating before she gets on the set is how is her makeup? We have makeup here, we have hair. How is her hair? How is the dress? But how is the dress when she's in it? How is it when she's working? How does the dress move a little bit? How can she help the shot? And then, how can she communicate something to me, to the photographer, while she's working? How can she do expression to make, what's the right expression for the dress? So in other words, she's always concentrating. The minute she's on set, she's working. And not just there looking out because a model can look out and a young model looks out because she's pretty, she just looks out and she's pretty, that's enough. Carmen is working. So Carmen is model and also actress. So with Carmen, you get two for the price of one.
You got it. But it's the communication that happens silently, the silent language that the photographer talks to the model silently. And very few photographers in history have that skill. This is the last of the legion of classic photographers who know what they're looking at and know how to light and how to inspire the inner dialogue of the model. You see, you don't say.
And sometimes you don't need to say a lot. It can sometimes be very minimal. You don't.
Less is more.
You don't have to be looking at Carmen and saying beautiful, beautiful, fabulous, fabulous, wonderful, wonderful, beautiful, beautiful, fabulous, fabulous, wonderful, wonderful. There should be an honesty there. Yeah. So if something's not quite right, you say, hold on, just a second, that looked good. That looked wonderful.
With Albert, I can look at his body language, his head language, his hand language. He's saying it with his body. He doesn't have to speak and say, it's a symbiosis that's either happens or it doesn't. It happens rarely. But what a pleasure to work with you. Finally, the legend. This is the legend. And I hope it rubs off on me a little bit.
I think it was the other way. So
we had great fun.
We had good fun today. It was great.
Carmen, you started with Vogue, and here you are again.
Well, I started with Vogue when I was 13, and I was 5'9" and 99 pounds. And it was Irving Penn who wouldn't photograph me till I was passed by the staff doctor, Herbert Southmaiden Ogden, who okayed me, who said I was all right, but if it weren't for Penn, I would never have grown into the physical body that I grew into. It's a long story and a nice story, but I owe Irving Penn my adultness. He has been with me all my life, and he knew it, and we were great friends from childhood into adulthood. And he christened me he said, "You've grown into a beautiful young lady." And it meant everything to me that I did everything right for him. And I did the best I could when I was part of a still life. And I was leaning against a table with my hair pulled back classically. And there was a melon and a shoe and a butterfly. And he had an 8x10 bellows camera. He was under the black hood, you know?
With the cloth.
And he said, "That's fine, that's perfect. Now, you just have to sit there and don't move until I come back." He clicked. And he came back maybe a half an hour later. And he said, "Did you blink a lot?" I said, "I tried not to." But he was doing, and the picture was me with my eyes open, but it was something he was doing with the camera. So I learned focus from him, you know, to be still inside, and that I was part of something. It wasn't about me. I had a job to do, and I had to think of things inside of me, and it's like having a dual personality, that I was always, I followed the instructions of the person who lives inside of me, and then there's the person that everyone is looking at. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense, and I can actually echo and say what I got from Irving Penn. You see? So what I got from Irving Penn was that I understood that the first thing Irving Penn was a photographer. So sometimes people in the art world, when Irving Penn, later in his life, when they began to do shows in the Museum of Modern Art and also the Met and so on, people said he was just a fashion photographer. Irving Penn, first of all, was a photographer. And he was a photographer of fashion. And that was one thing that I based my career on, that first of all, I was a photographer and I enjoyed photographing fashion. So I enjoyed that, but I never considered myself a fashion photographer. I was always a photographer who observed fashion. And Irving Penn was the same way, and so was Avedon. He was the same way. He was a pure photographer who became involved in the fashion business because the fashion business has a lot of attraction to it, of creativity. So therefore that attracted both of these men. And then the beauty of their work was that it was built on pure photography. And that's why their pictures still look good. And that's why now, today, you can go to the Met today and see an entire gallery of Richard Avedon's work. And he's in the Met today. And that work, because he was a photographer, his work has longevity, because the fashion photography was based on photography, not the other way around.
Well said.
Carmen, after 8 decades of modeling, how do you stay motivated?
Well, why do I breathe? I don't have to, you know,
I can tell from today that Carmen still loves doing it. And here we are at 7 o'clock at night, and she was here at 10, she's been here 9 hours. She didn't really take much off at lunch. So for 9 solid hours, and if I asked Carmen to do another 4 shots, she would do them. So what keeps it going is just the sheer love of what she does and what she can do.
Adrenaline and what can be expressed and what is the project.
She enjoys her work.
I enjoy the people who enjoy what they do.
Interacting with everybody,
yes,
for sure.
Tell us about your shoot today for Vogue Czechoslovakia.
Well, I think it's a first for me and maybe a first for you, Carmen.
It is a first for me And I feel very honored that they wanted me.
They wanted, between us, we have 170 years.
They were pretty smart to put
They
that together.
were pretty smart to put that together. No, I think it was very nice of them to ask us to do this. It was nice of Canon to ask us to do it. And hopefully we keep our fingers crossed that they like what we did. But we certainly worked hard for them, so that's no question. Carmen worked really hard, I worked hard, the whole team worked very hard. So it was nice.
Passion, everyone
was enthusiastic. Hair and makeup were enthusiastic, all of the fashion team, everybody.
And what's extraordinary for me is that I have a Vogue cover in 1947, that was my first fashion cover by Blumenfeld, who dubbed me. He sent me a big color of a 14 by 16 print of me in a black tulle dress, strapless, and my hair back like a ballet dancer. It was a full page in Vogue. And he said to a great actress, Erwin Blumenfeld.
How nice.
And he walked me home. His studio was on Central Park South, 22, something like that, 222. And I had gone there I had roller skated over on my own, you know. And he insisted on walking me home to 3rd Avenue, where I lived between 54th and 55th Street, 900 3rd Avenue. And he came up the 4 flights that I lived because he wanted to meet my mother and see what was going on. And the next shoot I had for him, he had his son walk me home. And then the next shoot, he had the other son walk me home. And it was lovely.
Special.
It was very special.
Yeah. Now I was driving up 3rd Avenue in 1976. So that is now 24 years, that is 47 years ago. And I was driving up 3rd Avenue and there was a bus shelter there. And on the bus shelter, which they had just put up there, was my very first Vogue cover. When I was driving up, and I had never seen the cover, they never sent it to me. I shot it and hoped they used it. I didn't know. They never told you if they ever used the cover.
Yeah, right.
Never. They never let you know that.
No.
So I was driving up there and I put the brakes on and I thought, wait a minute, I took that picture. So that was 46, 47 years ago. The very first picture, and it was of Patty Hansen, who's now married to Keith Richards. But that was, and it was her first Vogue cover, and it was my first Vogue cover. And there it was on 3rd Avenue at bus shelter. So these things were very special, that when you did that, and you know.
You know, in those days, everything was so political.
Of course.
Condé Nast I began with, and I worked with Cecil Beaton, all the staff photographers, Jaffé, Blumenfeld. I was mentored by...
You worked with Horst at all?
Oh, and Horst, oh my goodness. I was friends with Horst.
I had dinner with him
until the day he died. He was in a swimming pool in Florida, and I got through to him, and he said, "Are you smiling?" Because he taught me to smile. He gave me permission to smile when I was a teenager. He said, "Why are the corners of your mouth always turned down?" Well, I had braces, you know. And he said, "Don't worry about it. You're going to be a beautiful young lady, and we are going to be friends all our lives." And we were, through every stage. He photographed me. He knew my family. And it was because of Horst that I thought it was all right to let my happiness out, you see? Because inwardly, it was always yippee. I was so excited about everything. And I just had no way of knowing what to do what they wanted, except with certain photographers would let you know. And he did, and he helped, he gave me my laugh. And
which
I owe
was
that to him.
important.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
And I did a portrait of Horst, so I was very lucky to do a portrait of him, photograph him. And I always remember that we went down to the studio and he said, I brought something to show you. And he had the most beautiful wooden box, walnut wooden box, with his initials in brass on the box. And he brought it to me. It was about this big, not deep. And he turned it around, right? And he opened it. And inside was 24 bow ties.
Oh.
Right? And he said, I'd like you to choose what bow tie you would like me to wear.
Yes.
You know? So you see, they were different times. That generation, I kind of almost missed it, but I got waves of it when I started. And I worked with, at that time, a lot of the great editors at the beginning of my career. They were very, very, very good. And from these people, not only from these previous photographers whose work you look at, but from the editors that I worked with at the time, that's all part of an educational process, like you just described, you know, with the horse talking to you about the smile and so on, that basically you learn from that previous generation, you know.
And the person who inspired me when I was 13 was an editor, worked with me on the set and gave me poise.
Sure.
And I modeled my image of what I wanted to be when I grew up was Babs Paley. And we stayed friends till she died. And she was always there.
And the husband was CBS, right?
Yes, yeah. But it was Babs that was so fabulous and generous and made me feel
Different times.
beautiful.
Carmen, aside from this shoot, what was your most memorable shoot?
Oh, there you go. There were so many, right? That's difficult.
Well, I have to tell you, frankly, the one I just did with Albert.
Yeah, there we go.
Period.
I have a knife in her back here, just to say that, you know. So no, it's always the most important shoots are you're always hoping is the next one's going to be even better. You know, you always look to.
Oh, I always
you're almost
hope
not
there's
looking back. You're always thinking the next one's going to be good.
I always hope there's another shoot.
Yes.
No, I never,
Well, that's absolutely.
So-
You always hope there's another shoot. As far as the best ones are concerned, I mean, there's lots. There were so many. It's very difficult to like answer and say one shoot. There was one model or
it's
one
like if you
hair
children,
and makeup.
which child do you love the most?
Yes.
It's
There's
just
lots.
not fair.
No, but it's true. There's lots. There's endless shootings. You could tell. I could tell shootings starting in 74, 75, 76. You know, and then you just go forward. 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 2020 now. I mean, it's always a little bit sad when the people that were heroes of mine begin to disappear. That's always a little bit, you kind of imagine them going on forever and ever, you know.
Yeah.
And it's always a little bit sad. But of course, all of these people that we spoke about, every single person that we spoke about there, they leave an amazing legacy. You know, yeah, Abaddon's gone, but just go up to the Met this week and you'll see he's got a huge gallery exhibition at the Met. And the front page of the art section on Friday reviewed that show. So therefore, he's gone but not gone, you know? The same with Irving. I mean, you know, these people were remarkable, you know? One of a kind, you know?
Last question.
What advice would you both give to emerging artists and photographers?
I would say for photographers, I find sometimes photographers nowadays that I meet a little bit lazy. They enjoy the glamour of the business, being with young models and maybe travel. I always viewed being a photographer, part of it was being a tradesman. Forget the creative part for a second, but part of the job you had to learn how to drive the car first. In other words, you have to know how to change gears, you have to look in the mirror, you have to be safe, you have to know a lot of technical things first. It's painful to learn for a photographer, but I always felt, well, that was my job because I was a photographer. In other words, if a photographer with light, it was important. Of course, without light, you don't have anything. So light I view it as being really important. So therefore, I think the advice for young photographers, split your life into two. Spend time at galleries, museums, spend time with great photography, but spend time with art.
As a person.
You should know the history of photography. You should know the history of painting. You should know all of these things. And therefore you get inspiration from that.
You have to keep growing.
Yeah, and also you need discipline and a concentration. And the thing that I say with most photographers is preparation, preparation, and preparation. You should be prepared for a shooting.
Focus.
You should be, what did I do yesterday? I shot with Carmen on Saturday, but not yesterday. But what was I doing yesterday? I spent 2 hours just researching and thinking. I had an idea of the dresses and was thinking about what I would do today, how I would change what I did on Saturday to make the shooting more expansive and more interesting. So I didn't just not do anything yesterday, I thought about today. So that's a thing that is really important, is preparation. Thanks to Vogue Czechoslovakia for having us do this shoot. We had great fun, and we hope you like the pictures.
Thanks for the memory. Dee-dee-dee-dee-da.